All right, we're here for another day of working on the Nasty Norwegian again. Dad made a lot of progress over the week, so that's kind of the nice thing. He's retired, so that does help me out a lot, where he can work on some of these little things while during the week while I'm working, and then I come on the weekend and kind of we can start moving forward with the next step. So he was able to get the rear end kind of mounted in. We're kind of working on that today, doing the final touches on where that needs to be and mounting that in. And then once that's in, then we can start putting the engine, transmission, and everything else kind of where it belongs. So once we get the rear end in, then we can start really squaring things up, getting things set up, and then kind of going from there. So it's kind of a slower process today in a way, because we're trying to make sure we get all the measurements correct, make sure we get the rear end in straight. Yeah, it's a lot of little work today, but it's all probably some of the most important work we're going to do on the tractor is happening right now. So you see here we got the rear end in the frame. During the week, Dad had cut some slots for the rear end to slide into and started making some brackets. So what we're doing actually is we're finishing up making those brackets. You can see how we've got them bolted into the side rails, and this is what's going to hold the rear end in. But first, what we need to do is get those brackets made, and then we will adjust the rear end to the way we want it. So you can see here he's grinding out some of the steel. We didn't quite have them right, and then they slipped over the top. So once we had that done, we set the rear end the way we wanted it, got it as straight as we wanted it and needed it, and then he just tack welded them to them brackets. So yeah, this is it. This is the first big major part of getting this tractor built, is getting the rear end in, making sure the rear end was straight, and making sure that it's not going to move now, because the rest of the drive line will go off of the rear ends. Now you can see here a little bit closer shot that we've got of the brackets and how they're bolted in and how it's kind of tack welded. So later, when we tear the tractor all apart for final, before we go to paint stuff, we will actually like weld that all up really good and make sure it's really good. So you can also see that we installed the gears in there too, because once we get the mounts cut, which you can see what we're doing here, we can put the engine in and marry that to the rear end. So I have to apologize. I did a really poor job of showing us lowering the engine down into the frame. There was just a lot of moving parts, and I just kind of wanted to focus on making sure we got it in there. But once we got it in there, we could put some clamps on some brackets that we have installed, and got the transmission and rear end hooked together. And this is where it's going to sit. Everything is in its place where it's going to be. This is kind of a process that we're doing in stages, and week to week, this is what we can get done. And we spent a lot of time doing a lot of measuring, doing a lot of adjusting, and it doesn't make for an interesting video, but I did want to show you a little bit of the process and a little bit of the steps. So now that the engine is in the frame the way we want it, our biggest thing now is to start bolting it together and putting it all together. That's going to be, once we get the engine bolted in, the transmission all bolted in, and get the support in for the transmission, everything starts building off of that then. We can start putting the seat in, put the roll cage on, figuring out where our steering needs to go. So this is such an important part of the build, because it is where everything else is based off of. But we're going to get into that more next week. If you like what you're seeing, like this video, share it and subscribe to the channel.